Chapter 617. In this round 12 people from the Golden Crow Academy had fallen. All of them had fallen at the hands of the students from the Cloud Sea Academy. Moreover, all of them had been killed in one move. Even the weakest rank 1 evolved dragon Tu Ching had been able to kill Tu Dashan in one move. Moreover, his battle was the most shocking. Only now did the instructors and students of the academy come to a sudden realization. So the students of the Cloud Sea Academy were actually so strong. They couldn't help but look at the students of the Cloud Sea Academy with a bit of reverence. This was a world where the strong were respected. The strength displayed by the Cloud Sea Academy made all the instructors and students look at them in a new light. As for the instructors and students of the Golden Crow Academy, besides being shocked, they felt slightly embarrassed. The Dean of the Golden Crow Academy looked at the Dean of the Cloud Sea Academy from afar as if he was looking at a stranger. He had known this old fellow for so many years. This old fellow was indeed very strong, but in terms of learning he was far inferior. So much so that the Cloud Sea Academy was basically the last few in every 100-star tournament. He didn't expect it to soar so high this time. This was definitely not the ability of that old fellow. Thinking of this, the Dean of the Golden Crow Academy turned to look at the instructors of the Cloud Sea Academy. He and the Dean of the Cloud Sea Academy were old friends, so he often went to the Cloud Sea Academy. He also knew these instructors. Based on his understanding of these instructors, none of them had such ability. At this moment his gaze swept over to Immorse, who was sitting in his seat and looking around casually. Could it be him? From this fellow's temperament and other aspects, it didn't seem like it. But besides him there was no one else. Looks like I have to get to know this fellow as soon as I go back today. At this moment Jean Ponte felt as if he had eaten 12 piles of shit. Furthermore, they were fed by the students that he had taught in the past. Especially Tu Ching Earth City. In his eyes, Tu Ching was a complete piece of trash. In the past he had used all kinds of methods, but he couldn't make Tu Ching improve even a little. Moreover, Tu Ching couldn't improve, so he gave up on himself. He became the last in the entire class and even the entire academy. In the 30 years he has been leading these students, Tu Ching Earth City has never had any eye-catching performance. Unexpectedly, in just over 2 months, the strength of Tu Ching Earth City has changed so dramatically. What the hell was going on? After the battles came to an end, all those deans and instructors who were ridiculing and disdainful towards Ocean of Clouds Academy had come over to greet the deans and instructors of the academy. Obviously he was trying to make friends. The Dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy naturally felt amused as he gazed at their ugly faces. Weren't they all quite capable in the past? Why are they all trying to curry favor with me now? However, he didn't dislike it. This was because it was the natural behavior of dragons to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Moreover, since these fellows had come to curry favor with him, it would make things easier for him in the future. For example, if the equipment in Ocean of Clouds Academy wasn't complete, then he could allow his students to visit the other academies and even borrow their equipment. However, Immorse didn't care who they were and rejected them all. He completely ignored them. After they returned to the academy that night, the instructors of the various academies started to study Ocean of Clouds Academy. He studied the instructors and students of Ocean of Clouds Academy. It was even to the extent that some academies even exchanged their experiences. In the end, all of them came to a consensus that the reason Ocean of Clouds Academy had suddenly become so strong was entirely because of Instructor Mo. However, they knew very little about Instructor Mo's background and identity. It was even to the extent that they utilized a considerable amount of their connections to investigate Immorse's identity. However, they were unable to find anything in the end. According to Immorse's identity, they were only able to find information about Immorse after he arrived at Ocean of Clouds Academy. They were unable to find out what he did and where he'd been before he arrived at Ocean of Clouds Academy. But the more it was like this, the more mysterious Immorse was to them. Moreover, the more mysterious a person was, the stronger that person was. If there's an expert in Ocean of Clouds Academy, then it can only be Instructor Mo. Did all of you notice the dean's attitude towards him today? It didn't seem like the dean was speaking to an instructor at all, and it seemed like the dean was speaking to a senior instead. Yes, I noticed as well. Instructor Mo's identity is so mysterious, so he's definitely a great figure. So, we have to be careful before him in the future. Don't offend him before we figure out his identity. You make it sound like we can offend him once we figure out his identity. As soon as these words were spoken, all the other instructors could only shake their heads and laugh bitterly. To be honest, even if they figured out Instructor Mo's identity, it was very likely that his background would be able to shock them to death. So, it seemed like it was best not to figure it out. During the next 3 days, the final rounds of the competition were carried out. The remaining 8 students from Golden Crow Academy were practically instantly annihilated when facing the other academies. However, they were instantly annihilated when facing Ocean of Clouds Academy. In the end, the remaining 8 students from Golden Crow Academy were eliminated as well. Even the strongest amongst them, Jin Ming, was actually instantly annihilated when facing Mu Wanqing, who seemed to be the weakest amongst the students from Ocean of Clouds Academy. This allowed everyone present here to experience how terrifying the students of Ocean of Clouds Academy were. All of them couldn't help but look at Immorse once more. Exactly how formidable is this instructor Immorse to be able to teach such a group of students? In the end, when the competition came to an end, 12 of the top 20 were students from Ocean of Clouds Academy. As for why the remaining 8 hadn't been able to enter the top 20, it was because the students of Ocean of Clouds Academy had encountered each other before they even entered the top 20. For example, Mu Wanqing was no match for Jin Jian during the competition to determine the top 16, so she could only be eliminated. But even then, not a single student dared to look down on Mu Wanqing. All of them unanimously felt that if it wasn't an elimination system but a point system, then it wouldn't be a problem for all the students from Ocean of Clouds Academy to occupy the top 20. Of course, there were some students from Ocean of Clouds Academy who felt rather disappointed. It was Lei Ren. He'd finally been able to follow them here, yet he could only be a spectator in the end. Immorse couldn't help but roar with laughter when he saw Lei Ren's aggrieved expression. He consoled. "Don't worry, you'll have a chance to participate in the next competition once you graduate." Lei Ren puckered his lips. "What if you graduate and lead a new batch of students? At that time it'll be another 20 students from your class." Immorse waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about that. It's troublesome enough for me to lead these 20+ students. I won't lead any more after I'm done with them." Immorse had already made up his mind. After he returned to Ocean of Clouds Academy, he would run his own tutoring class properly. He would spread the name of his tutoring class. At that time it would be held every 10 days. It would save him a lot of trouble and he would be able to collect more money. Moreover, he would be able to make the system acknowledge these students as his students. 3 birds with 1 stone. Chapter 6:18. The Cloud Ocean Academy used their overwhelming advantage to become the champion of the 100-star competition. The 20 students of the Cloud Ocean Academy were deeply engraved in the minds of the over 2,000 teachers and students. Their performance, their domineering temperament, and their ruthlessness caused all the teachers and students to be deeply impressed. As for their teacher Immorse, he was deeply engraved in everyone's mind. What kind of teacher was able to teach such students? How terrifying was the teacher's strength to be able to teach such students? On the last day of the competition, all the teachers and students gathered for a meal. A large gathering of over 2,000 people could be said to be a magnificent sight. During the meal, many teachers came to toast the dean of the Cloud Ocean Academy. Of course, there were also many teachers who came to toast Immorse. I only toasted these people, but I didn't refuse any of them. These people all praised him for his great alcohol tolerance, but they were all silently wondering where this fellow came from and how strong he was. These people thought that they had become friends with Immorse after drinking with him, but in reality, Immorse was just drinking. As for making friends with them, they could go fuck themselves. He didn't want to make friends with so many people now. He only wanted to nurture his students. When the time came, his students would spread all over the world. Would he still need to care about the faces of others? No one from the other academies left first. They all sent the teachers and students of the Cloud Ocean Academy to their flying ships and watched them leave before leaving silently. After the conference ended, a name began to spread on more than 100 nearby planets. This name naturally belonged to Immorse, Teacher Immorse. At the beginning, the students of the various academies were talking about how amazing this Teacher Immorse was, and how valiant the students he taught were. Because these academies were the strongest academies on each planet, the legends of these students quickly spread across the entire planet. Thus, Immerse's name spread throughout the nearby 100-plus planets in an extremely short period of time. Of course, this was all in the future. When the students of the Cloud Ocean Academy returned to the Cloud Ocean, they received a warm welcome from the entire planet. After all, this was the greatest honor that the Cloud Ocean Academy had received in the past 100 years. The teachers and students of the Cloud Ocean Academy had brought honor to the entire planet. The entire Cloud Sea Star held a grand welcoming banquet for the Academy. At the welcoming banquet, Immerse's status was also very high. For a time Immerse was in the limelight on Cloud Sea Planet. During the banquet, Immerse made an important announcement. Instructors, students, and officials taking advantage of this banquet, I would like to announce an important decision. Immerse raised his glass and said. Hearing Immerse's words, all the instructors, students, and officials turned to look at him. Well, in order to cultivate more talents for Yunhai, I've decided to open a summer cram school. The cram school will recruit students from all over Yunhai. Hearing Immerse's words, the students present immediately became excited. After all, only students from Cloud Sea Academy had attended Immerse's cram school. Today those who had arrived at the venue were the genius students of the various academies. When they heard that Immerse had led so many students to achieve such good results, they wanted to acknowledge Immerse as their teacher. However, the academy had its own rules and it wasn't something you could do as you pleased. They were worried about how to get Immerse's guidance. They didn't expect Immerse to announce that he was opening a cram school. How could they not be overjoyed? The officials and instructors present were also surprised. Although there hadn't been a cram school in their world before, everyone knew that Immerse had opened one before. In their opinion, Immerse was a very quiet person who stood aloof from worldly affairs. There were many things that Immerse found troublesome. Why would he announce that he was recruiting students from all over Yunhai? Immerse continued, the cram school I'm opening doesn't have any requirements for talent. No matter how high or low your talent is, even if you're trash, as long as you attend my cram school, I guarantee that you'll be able to advance by one level within 10 days. If your level is low, you can even advance by 2 or 3 levels. As soon as Immerse said this, it immediately caused a wave of exclamations. Immerse's cram school didn't have any requirements for talent. This made everyone exclaim in disbelief. After all, almost every academy had a requirement for talent when they recruited students. Actually, this was understandable. If you didn't have any talent, it would be a waste to spend so much effort, manpower, and money on you. Now, Immerse was recruiting students without any requirements for talent. Moreover, he guaranteed that every student would advance by at least one level within 10 days. How could this not surprise everyone? If an ordinary person said this, they would probably be beaten half to death on the spot. However, it was Instructor Imo from Yunhai Academy who said this. After all, Instructor Imo had just led so many students and won the championship in the 100-star tournament in an absolutely crushing manner. Moreover, Instructor Mo's ability to advance by one level within 10 days was also confirmed by the Yunhai Academy. Even if they didn't believe in others, how could they not believe in Yunhai Academy? In the end, Immerse said, I only have one principle when I recruit students. Everyone hurriedly listened attentively. As long as you have money, as long as you have 1,000 dragon coins, I guarantee that every student will advance by one level within 10 days. When everyone heard this, they were all extremely excited. Especially the students. 1,000 dragon coins was indeed very expensive for ordinary people. However, these 1,000 dragon coins were nothing compared to the cost of leveling up once. After all, many people needed over 100 years to advance by one level. Could it be that you couldn't even earn 1,000 dragon coins in 100 years? Thus, many students immediately came to Immerse to ask about all kinds of problems. The scene instantly became chaotic. The officials felt quite embarrassed. According to the customs of Yunhai Planet, no one would set up a cram school like this. In their understanding, this was something they were accustomed to. Such a cram school didn't have any qualifications, and the quality of the teaching couldn't be guaranteed. Thus, such a cram school couldn't make any money at all. If a teacher really set up a cram school like this, they would be looked down upon by others. These officials all wanted to dissuade Immerse, but Immerse didn't break any laws. In fact, Yunhai Planet didn't have such laws at all. Thus, these officials could only feel embarrassed. The dean of Yunhai Academy and a few people who wanted to curry favor with Immorse all wanted to remind Immorse that it wasn't good to leave the officials to the side like this. If you don't go through the officials and apply for any documents and things like that, do you still have any respect for the officials? However, Immorse didn't care about all this nonsense. Even if I do it, what can you do to me? With his results and his current limelight, no one would dare to do anything to him. Chapter 6:19. On the second day after the banquet, Immorse's summer cram school started. When he signed up in the morning, it was even more crowded than the last cram school. He asked the students in his class to compile a list of names. In the end, more than 3,000 people signed up in the morning. Of these 3,000 people, 100 people formed a batch. There were 30 batches in total. In other words, the number of people who signed up in one day was enough to fill a whole year. No cram school on earth could be so popular. After the day of registration, Immorse stopped signing up. This made the students who didn't sign up regret it. That afternoon, 5 students that Immorse helped broke through. One of the students, who was only an ordinary giant dragon, advanced 3 ranks in 5 minutes. This shocked all the students. They were all enthusiastic about learning. Of course, with so many students, Immorse didn't have time to teach them. Instead, he assigned these people to his 21 students. Each of them was in charge of 5 people. Those theoretical knowledge and so on were all taught by these students. Only at the last stage of advancement would Immorse personally guide them. 10 days later, the first 100 people had graduated. Every one of them had advanced by at least 1 rank. As the saying goes, reputation is the best advertisement. After these people graduated and each of them advanced by a level, the news spread. They told their friends and relatives about their advancement. Some people even wrote all kinds of articles and videos on the internet to promote Immorse's cram school. These kinds of online articles and videos quickly spread. Of course, many people thought that these were fake news. Some people even directly called for the government to ban this person and remove these fake news. But soon the government came out to speak. Recently, someone spread rumors that Mentor Immorse's cram school is fake news. In this regard, we solemnly declare that Mentor Mo's cram school is not fake news. His cram school was spread by word of mouth among the students. Moreover, it is true that you can advance in 10 days. No matter how old you are or how high your aptitude is, you will definitely advance in 10 days. At the same time, we will maintain the right to pursue those who maliciously slander Mentor Immorse. Once this statement was released, it was equivalent to official confirmation. Those who had said that Immorse's cram school was false were not only slapped in the face but also disappeared without a trace. As a result, Immorse's summer cram school became even more popular. There were hundreds of thousands of people asking about it on the internet and calling to inquire about it. Immorse had no choice but to turn off the phone. For the rest of the summer vacation, Immorse's cram school continued. Immorse had recruited more than 600 students in just 60 days of the summer vacation. These students had basically all learned his various 9 dragon transformations. Of course, Immorse did not teach them all the 9 dragon transformations. After all, their aptitudes varied. It was impossible for everyone to learn everything in 10 days. Most people only learned the first transformation. Only an extremely small number of people with aptitude and intelligence managed to learn the second transformation. Immorse also planned to keep those heavenly geniuses by his side and teach them the various third dragon transformation. These few students who were able to stay by Immorse's side all cried out in relief. But the 21 students of the academy were even luckier. They were very glad that Immorse could come to the academy. Otherwise, with their aptitudes, it would be impossible for them to stay by Immorse's side. Moreover, through these 2 months of teaching, they could also see that Immorse was serious about teaching them at that time. Not only did he teach them the various 9 dragon transformations and let them level up, but he also brought them to gain experience and even took them to suppress bandits. This allowed their progress to far surpass these ordinary students. But now, these students were basically just leveling up and teaching them the various 9 dragon transformations. He did not care about anything else. As a result, these students' greatest gain was only leveling up. As for their combat strength compared to the 21 of them, the difference was like heaven and earth. Of course, they only knew this in their hearts and would not say it out loud. In their opinion, it was already very good for these students to be able to level up. You've only paid 1,000 dragon coins, allowing you to advance by one stage and learn such a profound cultivation technique and skill. What else do you want? There were still many other students who wanted to squeeze their heads in, but Immorse didn't want them. After school started, Immorse only went to the academy in the morning and continued with his tutoring classes in the afternoon. He had already taught these students everything he could, so there was no point in staying in the academy. And these students came to help Immorse every afternoon. To them, being able to stay by Immorse's side was already a great fortune. Strictly speaking, Immorse's current actions were against the rules, but the academy turned a blind eye to Immorse's actions. Such an outstanding teacher naturally had to have some special privileges. If you don't give him some privileges, why should he stay in this lousy academy? The Cloud Sea Academy was only one of the most remote academies in the entire starfield. With such great ability, he could go to the best academy in the entire starfield, get the best treatment and make friends with the best talents. Time gradually flew, and in the blink of an eye, a year had already passed. In addition to the original 21 people, Immorse took in another 79 students, making a total of 100 people. He kept these 100 people by his side and trained them. Gradually, the strength of these students reached the level of the original 21 people. With such a force, no matter which academy they went to, they would definitely be the target that those academies would fight over. Now they were all gathered under Immorse's command. Originally, Immorse thought that the days would pass by in such an ordinary way. Once the number of people under his command reached a certain level, he would go to other planets. But on this day there was chaos on Cloud Sea Planet. The Cloud Sea Planet's Star Lord died suddenly. It was important to note that the Cloud Sea Planet's Star Lord was a 4th grade super evolved dragon. Under normal circumstances he should still have tens of thousands of years of life left. Why did he suddenly die? But none of this was important. Next was to choose the Star Lord's successor. After the death of every Star Lord in the entire starfield, the starfield would choose their own successor. Of course, the successor could also be chosen according to the previous Star Lord's last words. But this generation's Star Lord had trained 2 people before he died. Konghai and Xianxia. Konghai was a space attribute super evolved dragon. He had reached the 3rd level. Xianxia was an extremely rare time attribute super evolved dragon. She had also reached the 3rd level. The 2 of them each led a group of forces. They attacked each other, both wanting to be the new Star Lord. Chapter 620. On this day, after Immorse finished teaching a few students in the lakeside villa, he brewed a pot of tea and sat by the lake with Lei Ren to drink. Gradually, the moon rose above the willow branches and Lei Ren went back to rest. After all, he still had classes tomorrow. The night breeze was slightly cold and the fragrance of flowers sent them off. Immorse couldn't help but want to call Happy and the others out to enjoy the beautiful night together. However, Happy and the others weren't dragons. If they were discovered, there might be a lot of trouble. More than 2 hours passed like this. Immorse was about to go back to sleep. A flying car stopped in the distance. Then 2 people got out of the car. The clothes of these 2 people looked like ordinary civilians. However, the temperament of the 2 of them was definitely not ordinary civilians. Immorse glanced at them. Both of them were rank 10 evolved dragons. One had to know that although rank 10 evolved dragons weren't the top existences in this world, they weren't common either. Now that these 2 were rank 10 evolved dragons, it could be seen that their identities weren't simple. The 2 of them came to Immorse and cupped their fists to Immorse. "Instructor Mo, I've heard a lot about you." He looked at the 2 of them up and down and saw that although their clothes were simple, they were very clean, and their hair was meticulously combed. "You are?" Immorse asked. "We are subordinates of Master Konghai. We were ordered by Master Kong to come and pay a visit to Instructor Immorse." After hearing these 2 people's words, knew why they came. He shook his head slightly. "I've always been unwilling to deal with the officials. Please go back." The 2 of them looked at each other and paused for a moment. After the sudden death of the previous Star Lord, the 2 people with the greatest power on the planet were Konghai and Xianxia. Konghai was once a soldier who fought in all directions and participated in the war between planets. He was iron-blooded and courageous. He won the respect of many soldiers in the barracks. After the onlookers, he won the respect of many civilians and political figures. On this planet, There were countless people who wanted to be recognized by Kong Hai and become his subordinates. But now this young instructor rejected Master Kong. This was something they didn't expect. Of course they wouldn't give up so easily. One of them said, "Don't say that Master Kong Hai values you very much. If you can join him, you will receive much higher status and respect than you have now. You don't have to trouble teaching so many students. We know that you must be short of money to teach so many students. If you join Lord Kong Hai's side, you will have plenty of money and beauties." Hearing this, Immorse burst into laughter. As he laughed, he shook his head. No wonder even with Lord Kong Hai's strength and status, he still hasn't defeated Shi Mingyue. It's because he has subordinates like you. Is this how you rope people in? Women? Money? To be able to catch the eye of Lord Kong Hai and reach such a position, who would care about worldly things like money and women? The two of them looked at each other again and a look of understanding flashed across their eyes. Finally, the two of them saluted Immorse at the same time. "Instructor Immo, please advise us." Immorse shook his head. "If you want to rope someone in, you have to at least cater to their preferences. Before you go, don't you have to study this person's preferences and personality?" The two of them replied, "We have studied Instructor Immo. We think that Instructor Immo values money." Ah! Immorse laughed heartily again. These two people were really interesting. Were all Kong Hai's subordinates like this? That was way too *king honest. But when Immorse plundered their memories, he found that things weren't that simple. Most generals liked to be straightforward and weren't that smart. And those civil officials played with people's hearts and politics. It was basically impossible for a general to play with civil officials. As a military general, Kong Hai was able to rise up in his official career. It was obvious that his thoughts weren't that simple. He was good at using people and naturally good at figuring out people's hearts. He knew that if he wanted to subdue someone like Immorse, normal methods wouldn't work. He could only use some special methods such as letting these two people show their honesty. Perhaps this would have some effect. In fact, if Immorse hadn't plundered their memories, it might have worked. Immorse was indeed moved by the sincerity of these two people. He wanted to follow these two to see what kind of talents Kong Hai's subordinates were. But now, from the memories of these two people, he knew that these were just tricks that Kong Hai wanted to show him. It was a trick to attract him. Immorse dispelled this idea. At the same time, he was really impressed by this empty brain. But Immorse wouldn't join Kong Hai because of this. He was free and happy as an instructor. Why should he be ordered by others? He waved his hand at the two of them. "You don't have to do this. I've always been quiet and indifferent. I'm used to being free. If I go, I'll definitely cause trouble. Not only won't I be able to help Master Kong Hai, but I might also affect Master Kong Hai's important matters." Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other again and saw a flash of surprise in each other's eyes. Why did it seem like their thoughts were seen through by this person in front of them? This guy was too scary. They had only met for less than 5 minutes and had only exchanged a few words. Their thoughts were already seen through by this guy. No wonder Master Kong Hai valued this person so much. But now that they had said this, their purpose had been exposed. They could only salute Immorse with cupped fists. "Instructor Mo, then I'm sorry to disturb you." With that, the two of them quietly said goodbye. The surroundings returned to peace. On the night of the second day, the peace of the lakeside villa was broken again. When Immorse was drinking tea by the lakeside, 2 more people came. These 2 people also drove flying cars. However, their flying cars didn't stop far away. Instead, they came directly in front of Immorse. The 2 of them got off the car. Their clothes were really normal, but their aura wasn't normal either. They cupped their fists towards Immorse and said, "Instructor Immo, our master invites you." I chuckled and asked, "Who is your master?" One of them replied, "Master Shi Mingyue." I replied calmly and then ignored the 2 of them. "It is your honor to be able to work for Master Shi." There was a domineering aura in his words. "Instructor Mo, come with us if you know what's good for you. Even if you don't work for Master Shi, at least go and take a look. We have completed our mission. Don't make it hard for us." I laughed coldly. Why should I care if it's easy or not? Chapter 621. Don't make it difficult for us. The 2 men repeated their words with a hint of viciousness in their words. "So what if I make it difficult for you? Immorse smiled indifferently and asked with a hint of ridicule. In that case, don't blame us. As the two spoke, energy surged from their bodies. One of them was of the time attribute while the other was of the space attribute. Their energy intertwined and the space around them seemed to be constantly surging like waves. Time and space intertwine, crush all things. The two let out a muffled roar from their throats at the same time. The black and chaotic energy on their bodies quickly swept toward Immorse. The black and chaotic energy kept intertwining, entangling and surging around Immorse. In just a few seconds, Immorse was completely devoured. It seemed to have formed a small black hole. The two looked at each other and a smug smile appeared on their faces. Who said that evolved dragons couldn't fight against super-evolved dragons? Wasn't this so-called mentor Emo a super-evolved dragon? The two of them had defeated this guy in just a few seconds. After trapping this guy in the black hole, they just needed to bring him back. However, before the smiles on their faces disappeared, the black hole in front of them gradually disappeared. A figure walked out of the black hole with an ordinary face and body. The person in black was none other than Immorse. The smiles on the two's faces froze and endless fear appeared in their eyes. How is this possible? How did he break free from our space-time black hole? Because they were too frightened, the two of them couldn't speak clearly. They really couldn't understand. This guy was at most a rank 2 super-evolved dragon, and their space-time black hole had once devoured a rank 3 super-evolved dragon. Why didn't it work in front of this guy this time? Immorse plundered their memories and knew what they were thinking. He chuckled. Because I'm not just rank 3. As he spoke, countless blood-red tentacles stretched out from under his feet. They crawled along the ground to the feet of the two, like countless red snakes crawling up their bodies, and finally completely devoured them. Meanwhile, their so-called time skills and space skills were completely ineffective against Immorse. It was only now that the two of them realized that this person before them wasn't just a 3rd grade but a 4th grade. He might even be a 5th grade. Thinking of this, their eyes were filled with despair. Their space-time combination could restrain any attribute, which allowed them to challenge Tier 2 or even Tier 3 super-evolved colossal dragons. However, no matter how strong their attributes were, the level gap was too large. They could do nothing about it. It was obvious that this person's level was much higher than theirs. Facing such a person, if they offended him, the only result would be death. The next moment, the two of them were completely swallowed by the blood-red tentacles. Another notification popped up in Immorse's mind. His dragon slaying points had increased by 2. After killing these 2 people, his heart trembled slightly. In his mind he said, "System, check in for a special event." The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event. Killed spacetime attribute dragon. Sign in reward. Dragon bloodline second mutation. Second mutation of the dragon vein? Immorse was very surprised. Today's sign in reward was very strange. Just as he was surprised, his body began to change. He felt 2 streams of energy rushing from his left and right arms to his hands. Finally, they gathered in his palms. 2 vortexes were formed. The energy kept spinning in these 2 vortexes and was swallowed by them. At the same time, the color of these 2 vortexes kept changing. Finally, the vortex on his left hand turned into a chaotic color, and the vortex on his right hand turned black. Immorse looked at his hands. The chaotic color on his left hand represented the time attribute. The black color on his right hand represented the space attribute. Time on my left hand, space on my right. Combine left and right, reverse time and space. Immorse said these 2 sentences for no reason. At this moment, energy surged in his hands. Immorse couldn't help but squat down. He stretched out his left index finger. He pointed at a blade of grass by the lake. The chaotic energy gushed out from his index finger and was absorbed by the blade of grass. In the next moment, the blade of grass grew rapidly, reaching a height of more than a foot. Then it began to turn yellow and finally completely withered like a piece of hay in winter. It was September and the summer vacation hadn't completely ended yet. However, this blade of grass seemed to have experienced autumn and winter in this short moment. The time attribute is indeed amazing. Energy surged in Immorse's right hand again. Facing the blade of grass, he gently separated his right index and middle fingers. A stream of black energy entered the blade of grass. The blade of grass was quickly torn into countless small powder. He didn't use dragon consciousness, nor did he use any other energy attack. Instead, he used a space attribute skill to refine the space where the blade of grass was into countless small fragments. Then he tore the blade of grass into pieces. Just imagine if he used such a skill on a giant dragon, the giant dragon wouldn't be able to resist at all. No wonder the time attribute and space attribute were the two strongest attributes in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. And now, Immorse had time in his left hand and space in his right. Such a person had probably never appeared in the entire 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. Next, he tried to combine the energy in his left hand and right hand to perform a new skill. However, he had just obtained the energy of these two attributes after all. He wasn't familiar with them yet, so he failed after more than 10 attempts. Immorse didn't force it. He just let nature take its course. Right now, he was a 6th grade super evolved giant dragon and had mastered many 9 dragon transformations. Now that he had the time and space attributes, he had become the ceiling of the entire Cloud Sea planet. To put it bluntly, as long as he wanted to, he could do whatever he wanted on Cloud Sea planet. No one or any force could stop him. However, he had always kept a low profile. He was invincible in Cloud Sea planet, but who knew if there were even more powerful existences on other planets? For example, the ancient dragons. Therefore, before he became an ancient dragon, he felt that he had to keep a low profile. Once he became an ancient dragon, he would go on a killing spree and quickly advance. In his opinion, once he became an ancient dragon, it would be even harder to kill him. Then he would reveal his true identity. Even if there were other more powerful ancient dragons, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything to him. 2 hours later in Cloud Sea Starry Cloud City. Konghai's mansion. 2 subordinates reported to Konghai. Lord Konghai, he doesn't want to join us. Konghai sighed. If he doesn't want to, then so be it. My lord, should we kill him? Forget it. As long as he doesn't make an enemy out of us. Moreover, who knows what faction is behind him? Chapter 622. Cloud Sea City Shi Family Mansion. In Shi Mingyue's study. Shi Mingyue frowned slightly and said, Men. Soon the door opened and a person who looked like a guard walked in. Shi Mingyue asked, The 2 people who went to Immorse's place haven't returned yet? The guard replied, Not yet, my lord. Find out why they haven't returned yet. There was a trace of impatience in Shi Mingyue's tone. The guard knew that Shi Mingyue was a little angry and quickly cupped his fists. Yes, my lord. Then he took out a small device on his left arm and turned it on. A blue beam of light shot out from the top of the device. In the beam of light was the projection of the 2 people. The 2 people left the Shi family mansion and took a flying car all the way to the lakeside villa. Soon they got off the car at the lakeside villa. They came in front of Immorse. After saying a few words, he moved and created a black hole. The black hole began to devour Immorse, but a moment later, Immorse walked out. Then he killed the 2 people. Seeing this, the guard couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Because of the 2 people sent by Shi Mingyue, one was of the time attribute and the other was of the space attribute. The 2 of them worked together to reverse time and space. In theory, the 2 of them could kill a grade 3 super-evolved giant dragon instantly. Even if they encountered a grade 4 super-evolved giant dragon, they could fight it. But now they were easily killed by Immorse. This was enough to show that Immorse's strength was very likely that of a grade 4 super-evolved giant dragon, or even a grade 5. If he really reached grade 5, he would be the strongest existence in the entire Cloud Sea planet. Previously, the Star Master was the strongest on Cloud Sea planet, a grade 5 super-evolved giant dragon. Now that the Star Master was dead, the strongest person was the man in front of him. Shi Mingyue's brows furrowed when she saw this. She thought that this guy was at most a grade 3 super-evolved giant dragon and that she could easily defeat him. She didn't expect this guy to be so strong. But soon, a fierce look flashed across her face. Since I can't use him, then I'll destroy him. No one on Cloud Sea planet was his match, but what about outside of Cloud Sea planet? Thinking of this, Shi Mingyue dialed an interstellar number. The person on the phone was not a human or a dragon but a blurry shadow. Senior brother, I have something I need your help with. The blurry shadow wriggled and made a strange rustling sound, similar to the rustling of leaves in the wind. If you want my help, the price is not low. I know. Come first. The blurry shadow paused for a moment before saying, Blood brothers settle accounts clearly. Let's settle the price first, then it'll be easier to handle the rest. Shi Mingyue cursed in her heart. He was really king obsessed with money. But on the surface he remained calm and collected. I need you to help me kill someone. How about a mid-sized spaceship? The blurry shadow chuckled. That depends on who you kill and what his level is. Might be 3rd grade. At best it could be 4th grade. Then he heard the rustling sound again. You have to pay more. Add your sister, you're really king obsessed with money. However, he remained calm on the surface and only nodded. How much do you want? Another 50 million, 30 million, 50 million, 35 million, 50 million, 40 million. Deal. The blurry shadow laughed again, laughing so hard that its body seemed to tremble. This reminds me of the business we did when we were young. I really miss that time. Shi Mingyue also smiled and shouted in a Chunibu manner, brothers of one mind. The blurry shadow continued to laugh. Sharp enough to cut through gold. The guard at the side kept cursing in his heart. Well, this is called brothers of one mind? But it's true that sharp enough to cut through gold. Both of them are haggling for their own benefits. Of course, this thought was only in his heart. He did not dare to show any disrespect on the surface. Shi Mingyue hung up the phone. She cursed fiercely, just like when we were young, there's no king brotherhood, only benefits. As she spoke, she took a sip. The guard at the side still did not dare to say anything. 2 days later, in the study of Shi Mingyue's residence. There was only Shi Mingyue and her senior brother. It was a humanoid creature wearing a cloak. They could not see what was inside the cloak. They could only see that it was pitch black inside the cloak. Shi Mingyue showed the previous video to the humanoid creature. How is it? Are you confident? The humanoid creature laughed a few times. Of course I'm confident. But you have to pay more. Shi Mingyue frowned and her face darkened. Senior brother, you can't be householder Qian, right? The humanoid creature laughed and said, didn't I say that even brothers should settle their accounts clearly? But didn't you already pay more the day before yesterday? That's different. You didn't say that this person was so strong the day before yesterday. Even the space-time duo was easily killed by him. Naturally, you have to pay more to deal with such a person. I'll pay more. Then how much do you want? Shi Mingyue was still a little impatient. Then let's add another 20 million. Shi Mingyue frowned. 20 million. Why don't you just rob? How can robbing be as fast as making money? Shi Mingyue shook her head. 10 million. The blurry shadow was still laughing. 20 million. 12 million. 20 million. 14 million. 20 million. 15 million. Deal. Shi Mingyue shook her head helplessly. You win every time. The blurry shadow was still laughing. You know that I win, but you still have to bargain. Can't you just say 15 million? I hope you'll find your conscience. Who knew that you don't have a conscience at all? You know that I don't have a conscience, but you still have to bargain. Are you brainless? Let's not talk about this. When do you plan to do it? The blurry shadow in the cloak seemed to sway a few times and said, that depends on the timing, the location, and the people. Okay, it's up to you. You just have to kill that guy within 3 days. If you're willing to pay more, I can kill him within a day. Senior brother, don't go too far. I've always gone too far. No, I can't afford it. Whoosh, you're still so stingy. You're not stingy? You're not stingy. You let me increase it again and again. Whoosh, I'm your senior brother. This is your filial piety to me. On the evening of the 3rd day, after Immorse helped a few students break through, he came to the lakeside again. He was still lying on the recliner, enjoying the evening breeze while drinking tea. It was indescribably comfortable. And at this moment, a black shadow quickly floated over from the distant sky. Chapter 623. Immorse was by the lake, enjoying the evening breeze and drinking tea. A black shadow suddenly flew over from afar. Doomsday sensed it with his draconic will and found that the black shadow was not solid. Instead, it was more like a cloud of mist. Is that a magical dragon? Immorse was slightly surprised. Magical dragons had once appeared in the Myriad Dragons starfield. Those dragons originally had normal bodies, but after being invaded by some kind of magic power, Their bodies were reduced to nothingness, leaving only a cloud of black mist around their consciousness. They were called magical dragons. In history, there was once a powerful demonized giant dragon, whose strength had reached the 10th level of superevolution. Its body was illusory and all energy and physical attacks had no effect on it. In the end, two dragons of the time and space attributes worked together to create a black hole and devour it. However, no one knew where the magic power in their bodies came from. Even after millions of years of research, no one had been able to find a clue. Fortunately, the appearance of those demonic dragons was extremely rare. In the entire history, there had only been 5 such occurrences. Who would have thought that one would appear here? The demonized giant dragon came to a place about 50 meters away from Immerse. It floated in the air like a ghost, observing Immerse. A short moment later, a rustling sound came from the center of the magical dragon. It sounded like the rustling of leaves in the wind. "Russell, you are an interesting fellow." Immerse didn't mind. That was because he had already seen this person with the eye of the magical dragon. It was a 4th-grade super-evolved dragon. The only difference between it and other dragons was that its body was illusory. An ordinary dragon would have a hard time dealing with someone like this. However, Immerse had no such problem. That was because he controlled time with his left hand and space with his right. Even though he had just obtained the time and space attributes not long ago, he had an advantage over this person in terms of grade. It wouldn't take much effort to deal with him. "This body of yours is rather interesting," Immerse said with a teasing tone. The dragon laughed once again. "Someone paid me to kill you." Immerse tried to plunder his memories but found that he couldn't do so. Thinking about it, it should be possible to plunder only if one's body was corporeal. However, this fellow didn't even have a body, so it was impossible to plunder an illusory cloud of smoke. "Let me guess, it's sure Mingyue?" Immerse said slowly. The black smoke continued to let out a clatter of laughter. "You really know that good-for-nothing junior brother of mine? I'm starting to like you. However, liking someone is one thing. If he pays me to kill someone, then you can't live. Of course, nothing is absolute in this world. If you are willing to pay a higher price for your life, then I can spare your life." Immerse laughed when he heard this. "A shrewd businessman like you is rare in this world. He took money from him and now he wants money from me. With a brain like yours, you can do anything." The black smoke trembled and the cloak behind it also trembled slightly. "Whoosh, most people are either scared or angry when they see me. It's the first time I've seen someone praise me. I like you more and more. In view of this, I can give you a 50% discount. If you can take out 100 million dragon coins, then I'll spare your life." Immerse shrugged. "Do you think I look like someone who has 100 million dragon coins?" The black smoke paused and said, "Haven't you earned 100 million from that nuisance cram school of yours?" Immerse shook his head. "That's not a small goal. It's not that easy to make money." The black smoke paused for a moment and said, "I can also pay in installments. Why don't you think about it?" "How do I pay in installments?" Immerse asked with a smile. "Down payment of 4 million and then give me a monthly payment. A monthly payment of 100,000. How about that? It's quite a good deal, isn't it?" Immerse laughed again. "Forget it. I can't make 100,000 a month. And the down payment of 4 million is a bit too high. Then how much do you want?" "I think if you give me 4 million and give me a monthly payment of 100,000, I can consider sparing your life," Immerse said jokingly. The black smoke paused for a moment and trembled a little. It was obvious that he was trembling slightly. "Brat, I'm talking business with you seriously and you dare to play with me?" I shrugged again. "No, I'm just talking business with you. Seems you want to die," the black shadow said and attacked Immerse. Immerse didn't know much about this black shadow and he didn't know anything about magic. Of course, he wouldn't let it get close to him. At this moment, the chaotic light in his left hand lit up and the black light in his right hand lit up. The 2 types of light shone brightly. Soon, the 2 types of energy gathered in his palms and formed a big ball. This energy ball, formed by the intertwining of 2 types of energy, formed a vortex as soon as it appeared. The center of the whirlpool seemed to have an endless suction force. Within a 20-meter radius, all the flowers, trees, and lake water were sucked in. The black shadow that was pouncing over was shocked when he saw this. "How is a space-time black hole possible? How can you have time and space at the same time?" "No." As he screamed, he tried to flee into the distance. But the suction force of the spacetime black hole was too strong. He was too fierce when he pounced, and he was only 5 meters away from Immorse. So he was sucked in almost instantly. The moment before he was sucked in, he screamed in despair, "I'll give you the 4 million down payment." Don't. In the next moment he was swallowed by the black hole. Immorse retracted his hands, and the two types of energy returned to his hands from the black hole. The black hole disappeared completely. All of this took a long time to describe, but it happened in just 3 seconds. This kind of magic-possessed energy was hard to deal with. Countless colossal dragons in the 10,000 Dragons starfield had died to deal with the 5 energy bodies that had been possessed by demonic powers. In the end they barely managed to kill them. But this kind of energy had a fatal weakness: they were afraid of black holes. Spacetime black holes were their natural nemesis. Even in his wildest dreams, this guy would never have thought that Immorse would possess the time and space attributes. Immorse was happy to have used the spacetime black hole to devour him. The time and space attributes were so powerful. It was so easy to kill the energy of a 4th-grade super-evolved dragon. It seemed I had to practice the combination of time and space attributes in the future. Chapter 624. After killing the demon-possessed dragon, Immorse knew that Shi Mingyue would definitely not let him go. But he didn't care at all. One had to know that with his current strength he was basically invincible in the entire Cloud Sea Star. And at that time Mingyue was at most a level 4 super-evolved dragon. Even if all the powerhouses under him were added up, Immorse wouldn't even blink. Of course at that time, Mingyue might also invite other extraterrestrial helpers, but Immorse didn't believe that he would be able to invite an ancient dragon. With Immorse's current strength, as long as it wasn't an ancient dragon, even if he couldn't win, it would be easy for him to escape. So after killing the demon-possessed dragon, Immorse returned to his bedroom as usual when it was close to 12 o'clock. "System sign in," he said in his mind. The system's voice quickly sounded. "Sign in successful. Sign in reward. Dragon will has evolved into demonic will." Demonic will? Immorse was a little surprised. What is this demonic will? Demonic will, a type of psychokinesis. It's just that this psychokinesis has a certain killing intent. It can be used to kill dragons, or it can also be used to arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. It can be used to kill dragons, or it can also arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. Immorse was a little excited about this. Now, it was impossible to use dragon will to kill dragons in the 10,000 Dragons starfield. Because the dragons' bodies were extremely strong, dragon eyes couldn't tear their bodies apart at all. But now this demonic will could kill dragons. Well, this was equivalent to Immorse having a method to kill dragons invisibly. And he could also arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of others. This was very powerful. In certain situations where it was inconvenient for him to make a move, he could use demonic will to arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. Immorse entered his Earth space. He tested the power of this demonic will. With his current demonic will, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill 3 to 5 dragons under normal circumstances. The power wasn't as strong as he had imagined. Thinking about it, it should be because the demonic will wasn't too strong yet. Once its power grew, killing 10,000 dragons with a single thought would no longer be a fantasy. However, this little bit of power was enough for now. Imagine how shocked and terrified the other giant dragons would be when they saw that he could kill a giant dragon with just a thought. However, these were only Immorse's guesses. In fact, the power of this demonic consciousness still needed to be tested by the WMs. Where was he going to find a dragon to verify it? The answer was simple. He had killed 2 waves of Shi Mingyue's men, so he definitely wouldn't let him go. Sooner or later he would come back to find him. Since that was the case, he might as well take the initiative and meet him now. Thinking of this, Immorse moved his mind and appeared over 1,000 kilometers away. After that, he used his maximum speed to fly towards the main city of Cloud Sea Star, Cloud Sea City. Now that Immorse had become a 6th-stage super-evolved dragon, his speed was extremely fast. While flying, he tried to add a spatial skill to it. He was not flying but flickering. You saw him appear in front of you, but in the next moment he was already on the horizon. This kind of flickering was different from Immorse's previous teleportation. The previous teleportation consumed a lot of energy. But now he was using a spatial skill. This kind of spatial skill consumed very little energy. Moreover, Immerse was not proficient in spatial skills. If he was proficient, it was possible for him to reach tens of thousands of kilometers per second. At the same time in Cloud Sea City. At this moment, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, wind and rain mixed together. In Kong Hai's residence. Kong Hai was discussing the upcoming plan with a few of his strategists. He planned to kill Shi Mingyue tonight. And he knew that Shi Mingyue was not to be trifled with. Shi Mingyue was probably planning to make a move against him in the next few days. After discussing for about half an hour, they finally came up with a plan for tonight. Don't worry, Lord Kong. Tonight's plan is foolproof. As long as our plan is carried out smoothly, then Shi Mingyue will definitely die. Kong Hai nodded and said, I believe that after you kill Shi Mingyue, Cloud Sea Star will be our world. At that time I will not treat you unfairly. The strategists cupped their fists and said, we will definitely do our best. At the same time in Shi Mingyue's residence. Shi Mingyue was also discussing the plan with a few strategists. We have received information that Kong Hai is likely to make a move tonight. Lord Shi, then we must act as soon as possible and be one step ahead of them. As the saying goes, those who strike first gain the advantage, those who strike later suffer. Lord Shi, now is the time for lightning and thunder, the storm is fierce. It is the best time to act. Shi Mingyue shook her head slightly. The others were puzzled when they saw this. Does Lord Shi have a plan? Lord Shi, if you don't act now, it will be too late for regrets. Shi Mingyue still shook her head slightly. I am waiting for someone. Could Lord Shi be waiting for the shadow hidden under the cloak? Shi Mingyue nodded. That is my senior brother. With his strength he can deal with a 5th grade superevolved dragon. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the highest combat power on Cloud Sea Star. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. I understand. Lord Shi wants to wait for senior brother to return. With senior brother here there is almost no chance of us losing. Shi Mingyue smiled and nodded. You are right. At this point Shi Mingyue called out to the door. Men. A fully armored guard quickly came in. Lord Shi. The guard cupped his fists and greeted. Senior brother is not back yet? No. Shi Mingyue looked at the time. It was already around 12:10 at night. Senior brother should have completed the mission by now. With his personality, even if he could not make it back in time, as long as he completed the mission he would call Shi Mingyue to ask for the remaining money. Did something go wrong? Shi Mingyue's heart skipped a beat when he thought of this. He had sent the space-time duo, thinking that it would be easy for them to capture the dragon. Unexpectedly the space-time duo never returned. Could it be that today was also the same? How was that possible? Shi Mingyue was much stronger than the space-time duo. Let alone a 5th grade dragon, even a 6th grade super-evolved dragon would not have an easy time in front of his senior brother. That guy could not be a 7th grade super-evolved dragon, could he? Just as he was wondering, a domineering voice came from outside the door. Shi Mingyue, come out and face your death. Even though it was a stormy night, this voice broke through the sky and the curtain of rain, echoing in the minds of everyone in the mansion. Shi Mingyue was shocked when he heard this voice. He was a scholar and scholars were always very smart. That was why he did not go out. Instead he went to the monitoring room. He looked at the sky through the monitoring room's screen. In the rainy night, a figure was floating in the air above his mansion. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The person in the sky was dressed in black and had a cold expression. It was Instructor Immerse, whom he had been looking for. Chapter 625. Seeing Immerse appear, a trace of fear appeared in Shi Mingyue's heart. The space-time duo had failed. Her senior apprentice brother had also failed. How was this possible? As far as Shi Mingyue knew, the strongest person she had ever seen was her senior apprentice brother. An existence that could kill a grade 6 super-evolved dragon with the body of a grade 4 super-evolved dragon. However, her senior apprentice brother had not returned, and this guy had appeared in front of her. Could it be that this guy's level had surpassed that of a grade 6 super-evolved dragon? No, that was impossible. How could he be a grade 6 super-evolved dragon? Shi Mingyue shook her head in fear. She ordered all her subordinates in the mansion. Kill him. Kill him. There were some ruthless people under Shi Mingyue. Moreover, some of them did not recognize Immorse. Therefore, a grade 3 super-evolved dragon with a mohawk shouted, "Don't fight with me. He's mine." To be able to kill this fellow who had trespassed into the first mansion would be another meritorious service. Although Lord Shi's methods were ruthless, he had always been very generous. Killing this guy would definitely give them a lot of rewards. No one else went to fight with the Mohawk because the Mohawk was a troublemaker. He was Lord Shi's favorite. Who would dare to fight with him? They could only curse in their hearts. This guy got first again. What af*** King Bootlicker. The Mohawk had already condensed a pair of wings with energy and flew up. The next moment, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The entire land was illuminated as if it was daytime. Meanwhile, the body of the Mohawk that had just flown up was instantly torn in half and fell from the sky. When the surrounding people saw this, they were all shocked. What was going on? They did not see the guy in the sky attack. Moreover, after the Mohawk fell to the ground, his body showed no signs of healing. It was important to know that dragons had extremely strong vitality. Their self-healing abilities were also very strong. Even if their bodies were torn in half, they would be able to heal themselves at the fastest speed. However, the cells in the Mohawk's body seemed to have died long ago. What was going on? In the midst of the shock, there was a grade 3 super-evolved dragon who was not afraid of death. Like the Mohawk, he roared, "How dare you trespass the mansion? I think you don't want to live anymore." Then he stomped his feet on the ground and his body quickly soared into the air. When he was in the air, a layer of yellow energy appeared around his body. Then the yellow energy in the sky condensed into a giant fist that was 1,000 meters long and 500 meters wide. It smashed down on Immorse. Even the rainwater in the sky seemed to have stopped under the impact of this earthy yellow energy fist. This was the killing move of the rank 3 Earth Dragon. However, at this moment, the Earth Attribute Dragon's body was suddenly torn into several pieces. It fell from the sky and at the same time the khaki-colored energy fist disappeared. The rain that seemed to have solidified in the sky began to fall again. When several pieces of the Earth Attribute Dragon's corpse fell from the sky and landed at their feet, everyone was once again shocked. This Earth Attribute Giant Dragon was best at defense, and its body was far stronger than other giant dragons, but now it was torn into several pieces in an instant. Just how much power was needed to do that? Moreover, no one saw how the guy in the sky attacked. That fellow kept flapping its blood-red wings, quietly floating in the sky, motionless. They did not see any signs of him attacking at all. However, he killed 2 rank 3 super-evolved giant dragons in an instant. What on earth was going on? Amidst the panic, someone said, "This guy is too strong. We can't deal with him alone. Everyone, let's kill him together." When he said this, the rest of the people roared one after another. They leaped into the sky. Moreover, they did not attack Immorse in their human forms. Instead, they transformed into their giant dragon forms. In the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, the giant dragon form was the strongest combat form. Therefore, when giant dragons encountered a powerful enemy, they would usually transform into their giant dragon forms. In just an instant, more than 30 giant dragons appeared. Under the curtain of rain, each of these 30 giant dragons was 10,000 meters long. There were fiery red fire elemental dragons, golden metal elemental dragons, and yellow earth elemental dragons. More than 30 giant dragons almost occupied the entire dark night sky. The sky was filled to the brim. This was definitely the most spectacular scene Immorse had ever seen. If the people on Earth saw this scene, they would probably be scared to death. In the secret chamber below the ground, Shi Mingyue watched this scene on the screen, and her heart began to beat rapidly. More than 30 giant dragons were basically rank 3 super-evolved giant dragons. If they still could not deal with this guy, then they would have to bring out their strongest secret weapon. This time, Immorse in the sky finally moved. He did not transform into his giant dragon form. He still maintained his human form. He stretched out his hands slightly. The chaotic time attribute energy appeared in his left hand, and the black space attribute energy appeared in his right hand. Time in his left hand and space in his right. The left and right combined and time and space reversed. The next moment, these 2 attribute energies quickly rose and intertwined in front of him. Then an energy vortex appeared. This energy vortex appeared to be the color of chaos. However, it soon turned black. The next moment, a black hole appeared in the sky. This black hole was about 100 meters in diameter. The moment the black hole appeared, a huge suction force suddenly spread out in all directions. All the rain within 100 kilometers was instantly sucked into this black hole. Crack! A bolt of lightning that spanned across half the sky appeared. However, this bolt of lightning did not have time to illuminate the entire world before it was quickly swallowed by the black hole. When all the giant dragons saw this, their expressions suddenly changed drastically. A black hole that could even swallow lightning. What kind of terrifying existence was this? In horror, these giant dragons quickly fled in all directions. However, before they could escape, their bodies involuntarily moved toward the black hole. A fire giant dragon kept flapping its wings, trying to break free from its shackles. However, its tail was quickly swallowed by the black hole, and the power generated by its flapping wings was far from being able to withstand the suction force of the black hole. It seemed that in just a few seconds, this giant dragon was swallowed by the black hole. One must know that this giant dragon's body length reached 10,000 meters, and its wingspan reached more than 8,000 meters. The diameter of the black hole was only about 100 meters. However, the black hole had no difficulty swallowing this 10,000-meter giant dragon. The rest of the giant dragons originally thought that their bodies were huge and would be stuck in the black hole, and it would be impossible to be completely swallowed. However, when they saw this scene, they suddenly panicked. Chapter 626. Seeing that Immerse's black hole could actually devour giant dragons, the other giant dragons' expressions changed drastically, and they hurriedly fled in all directions. However, in the blink of an eye, the suction force spread toward them. Although they were giant dragons and had power far beyond the imagination of humans, compared to the suction force of this black hole, their power was so insignificant. The earth attribute giant dragons were sucked in, the metal attribute giant dragons were sucked in, the ice attribute giant dragons were sucked in, and the wood attribute giant dragons were sucked in. In front of this black hole, no giant dragon of any attribute could escape. And not only the giant dragons in the sky, but also the giant dragons on the ground who had not yet transformed into their giant dragon forms were sucked in one after another. They hurriedly struggled to escape. However, all their movement skills, teleportation and flickering were useless in front of this black hole. Just like in any movie, these people were sucked up high. Then they were swallowed by the black hole. Along with them, the buildings, flowers, and trees on the ground were also sucked up and swallowed. What was a black hole? It was a black hole that swallowed everything. At this time, the black hole created by Immerse was swallowing everything that could be seen in Shi Mingyue's residence. In the secret underground room, Shi Mingyue saw this scene and his face turned pale. Especially when he saw the 5 rockery arranged according to the 5 elements in the residence being sucked up. Under the rockery, 5 hidden pipes with a diameter of more than 10 meters were also sucked up. Shi Mingyue's eyes were filled with horror. Hey, wait. I haven't even taken out the secret weapon and it's already been sucked into the black hole. What the hell is going on? He regretted it, he really regretted it. He regretted provoking this guy in the first place. In fact, he didn't notice Immerse at all at first. He heard from his subordinates that Kong Hai went to invite Immerse, so he followed suit and invited Immerse. He never thought that he would provoke a fiend like this. Kong Hai, so this is your most powerful killing move. You deliberately led me to provoke this fiend. At this time, the only thing Shi Mingyue could think of was to escape. Facing such a terrifying guy, he could only run. He hurriedly took out a cube that looked like a Rubik's cube. However, this cube was black in color and it even emitted a faint black glow. One had to know that there was nothing in the world that could emit black light. However, this cube was emitting a black light which was enough to tell that it was different from the rest. That's right, this was an escape route. It was an escape space created by a giant dragon with spatial attributes. As long as he entered through this entrance, he would appear at the exit in the next moment. The exit was on another nearby planet. Therefore, as long as he activated this escape space, he could quickly leave the Cloud Sea Star. Run away from this fiend. However, when he activated the space and tried to enter it, he was shocked to find that he could not enter it no matter what he did. His face turned even paler. This is impossible. This space can't be fake. What's going on? Naturally, he did not know that Immerse had mastered spatial skills. As long as it was within a radius of 100 kilometers, Immorse had absolute control over the entire space. Even if you can teleport, you know some movement skills and you have some kind of escape device. However, under the absolute control of Immorse's space attribute skill, there was no way for him to escape. Just as Xianxia was panicking. Rumble, rumble, a series of loud noises kept coming. The loud noises seemed to be very close. It sounded like the sound of a house collapsing during an earthquake. However, when he looked up, he found that it was not the ceiling above him that was collapsing, but the ceiling that was collapsing. Hundreds of cracks appeared on the roof, so it broke into hundreds and thousands of pieces and flew into the sky. One had to know that his secret room was more than 20 meters from the surface, which meant that the 20-meter-thick floor had already shattered into thousands of pieces and was sucked into the black hole. Xianxia looked at all this in disbelief. He used to have the space-time duo under him, but that guy with spatial attributes did not have such terrifying strength. The strength that Immorse displayed made him despair. At this time, Xianxia could only use his time attribute skill. The chaotic light on his body lit up. The chaotic energy spread out and quickly occupied a radius of 100 meters. He had to control time. At least control the time within 100 meters of him so that the collapse would slow down a little so that the black hole would slow down. Only then would he have time to escape. However, just as the chaotic light on his body began to spread out, Yizichen's eyes lit up. The chaotic light on Immorse's body shone brightly. And this chaotic light was 100 times brighter and 100 times stronger than the chaotic light on Xianxia's body. Almost in an instant, it swallowed the chaotic light on Xianxia's body. At this moment, Xianxia's chaotic light did not have any effect at all. Moreover, his body was rapidly wrinkling and aging. Xianxia knew that this was the time attribute at work. He used to play this trick often, accelerating the flow of time on someone's body, letting that person quickly age and eventually die. But now he actually saw the time on his body being accelerated rapidly and he was aging quickly. His body was no longer full but quickly shriveled up. More and more wrinkles appeared on his body, and soon he looked like an old man in his twilight years. How was this possible? This guy actually knew how to use time attribute skill again. Wasn't he a spatial attribute? How could he know the time attribute? Could it be that he had mastered both the time and space attributes at the same time? God, what kind of guy did he provoke? It was okay to accidentally offend a pervert. No. Xianxia only had time to let out such a cry before his body quickly shriveled up like a dried corpse. His cells lost their activity and his body lost its life. A person who played with time in the palm of his hand was finally played by time. Logically speaking, Xianxia's time skill was better than Immorse's. After all, he had been playing with it since he was young and had been playing with it for tens of thousands of years. However, he had no resistance in front of Immorse's time skill at all. This was all because there was a huge gap between his level and Immorse's. One had to know that between super-evolved dragons, the difference between each level was like heaven and earth. He was only a level 4 super-evolved dragon while Immorse was level 6. No matter how good his time attribute skill was, it was as insignificant as an ant in front of Immorse's level suppression. Following that, the black hole continued to devour everything in the Xian family's residence. About 5 minutes later, everything in the Xian family's residence had disappeared. There was only a huge pit with a diameter of 5 kilometers left. Chapter 627. In the rainy night. A bolt of lightning instantly tore through the night sky, illuminating the entire world as if it were daytime. Immorse was suspended in the air just like that. He did not care that the rain was drenching him. He looked at the 5-kilometer-wide crater on the ground. Immorse sighed in his heart. The power of this spacetime black hole was so great. Not only did it devour dragons and buildings, but it even devoured the ground. As long as it was within its suction range, it would devour everything. And this was the skill he had just obtained. If he could practice it more, how powerful would it be? Immorse estimated that with this skill, it would be easy for him to deal with a 9th-grade super-evolved dragon that was 2 or 3 grades higher. After becoming a super-evolved dragon, the difference between each grade was like heaven and earth. Generally speaking, being able to deal with an enemy that was 1 grade higher was already very powerful. Immorse could now deal with an enemy that was 2 or 3 grades higher. It was obvious how much this black hole had boosted his strength. At this moment the system's voice rang in Immerse's mind. Dragon slaying points. 10501000. Level up available. Do you wish to level up now? Immerse was overjoyed. His dragon slaying points were finally full. Level up. Time required for this level up, 5 minutes. The system prompted again. Immerse took one last look at the crater below. Seeing that there was nothing left for him to stay in this apocalyptic world, his figure disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared he was already thousands of kilometers away. No one knew that the bright moon that shook the entire Cloud Sea planet on this rainy night had already disappeared. 10 minutes later in the lakeside villa. Immerse's face was filled with joy. I've finally reached 7th grade. It had only been 4 months since he came to the 10,000 Dragon Star region, and he had already risen to 6th grade. For those dragons that needed hundreds, thousands or even thousands of years to advance to 1st grade, Immerse's speed was no different from sitting on a rocket. He estimated that, at 7th grade he could easily deal with a 9th grade super evolved dragon. He might even have a chance against a 10th grade super evolved dragon. However, this was not enough to satisfy him. Instead, it made him more eager to continue evolving to become an ancient dragon. In the eyes of others, a 10th grade super evolved dragon was already 10% powerful. Ancient colossal dragons, on the other hand, rarely appeared. However, since Immerse wanted to stir up trouble in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, an ancient dragon would be the minimum requirement. Now that he was already a Tier 7 super evolved colossal dragon, would the ancient colossal dragon still be far away? While Immerse was getting excited at the lakeside villa, about 10 kilometers away from Xianxia's mansion, a troop of about 3,000 people was passing by silently. Gotcha! A bolt of lightning lit up the world as if it were daytime. Through the lightning one could see that these people were all wearing black cloaks in the rainy night. They were like a group of ghosts. The leader of the group was a tall and sturdy man with a cold face. This person was Kong Hai. Thousands of years ago there had been 3 great wars on Cloud Sea planet. Another time was a war against foreign enemies. Kong Hai had performed exceptionally well in the past few battles. He killed so many enemies that they were terror-stricken. Thus, he built up his reputation and slowly became a loyal subordinate of the Star Lord. Now that the Star Master was dead, he had become the candidate for Planet Master. Originally, he planned to deal with Xianxia in 2 or 3 days, but the weather tonight was too good, so he changed his mind at the last minute and gathered 3,000 people to kill Xianxia. However, just as he and his 3,000 people were moving forward silently, a voice suddenly came from his earpiece. Master Kong, something bad has happened. Xianxia frowned and raised her fist, indicating for everyone to stop. What's wrong? Master Kong, when we came here to investigate, we found that Xianxia's mansion had disappeared. Disappeared? What did that mean? My lord, this is the Shi family's residence. It has completely disappeared, leaving only a huge pit here. When Kong Hai heard this, he was slightly stunned. What was going on? How could the Shi family mansion disappear? In his surprise, he sped up and quickly arrived above the Shi family mansion. At this time, the Shi family mansion was no longer there. In the place where the Shi family mansion used to be, there was only a huge pit with a diameter of 5 kilometers. They used all kinds of technology to investigate if the Shi family was up to something. However, after more than 10 minutes, all the technology found was that the Shi family mansion had completely disappeared. Master Kong, according to the space-time detector, we found that a black hole had appeared here. It's very likely that the Shi family mansion was swallowed by that black hole. As for the 700 people, they were probably swallowed by the black hole as well. A technician reported. Hearing this, the surrounding people felt a wave of shock in their hearts. Although the dragons had studied black holes much more than the people on Earth, it was still very difficult to create a black hole. Even if 2 dragons with time and space attributes worked together, they would need to reach 100% tacit understanding before they could create a black hole. However, in fact, it was impossible for 2 people to reach 100% tacit understanding. Even twins were impossible. Theoretically speaking, if one wanted to create a black hole, they would have to possess both the time and space attributes. However, the space attribute was already very rare and the time attribute was even rarer. In addition, dual attribute dragons were also very rare. With all these factors combined, It was almost impossible for a dual-attribute space dragon to create a black hole. Then what was going on? Amidst their astonishment, everyone began to inspect their surroundings. They didn't find any valuable clues. In the end, they could only conclude that the Xian family had provoked someone they shouldn't have. They were destroyed by that person. And currently in the Nebula Sea Star, he couldn't think of anyone who could destroy the Xian family in such a short time. Then it should be done by an alien force. This way it would save him a lot of trouble. Originally, with more than 3,000 of them against the Xian family, although they would definitely be able to destroy them, there would still be casualties. Now they wouldn't have a single soldier. Xianxia had been destroyed without any effort. Then he could just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. Of course, he didn't dare to make a move for the time being. What if the powerhouse who destroyed the Xian family was on the Nebula Sea Star? I destroyed the Xian family and you became the Nebula Sea Star. No one would be happy with this. So he waited for another half a month. In this half a month he used his identity and status to inquire from various channels to see if there was a mysterious powerhouse that suddenly appeared. However, there was no news. It seemed that the powerhouse had already left the heart of the Nebula Sea Star. Thus Kong Hai began to inherit the position of Nebula Sea Star. He inherited the position of Nebula Sea Star in a very special way. There were 2 chairs left behind his seat. When his subordinates asked why he left these 2 chairs behind, he replied, "The reason why we were able to easily obtain this ruling power was all thanks to these 2 powerhouses. If they return, I am willing to hand over this ruling power to them unconditionally." Chapter 628. In the following days, Immerse still went to the Cloud Sea Academy for half a day and then stayed at the lakeside villa to tutor. He seemed to be aloof from worldly affairs. At the same time, the news of Xianxua's destruction had spread throughout the entire Cloud Sea planet. Many forces were very surprised by Xianxua's destruction. Many people were also very surprised. They all knew that there would be a battle between Xianxua and Kong Hai after the sudden death of the Star Lord. Moreover, that battle was likely to be huge and long. Many forces were already prepared to benefit from it. Many people had also moved their stools and were ready to watch the drama unfold in the front row. However, no one expected Xianxua to be destroyed without a sound. It said that someone went to the Xian family mansion to take a look. Everything in the Xian family mansion had disappeared, leaving only a 5-kilometer crater. If you want to talk about big pits, many giant dragons can create them. But you have to know that the Xian family mansion is not an ordinary force. Their mansion must have an extremely powerful defense system around it. Therefore, to be able to break through the defense system of the Xian family and destroy the entire family without a sound, the person must be very powerful. It's very likely to be a grade 7 super evolved dragon. I think it's likely to be grade 8. Therefore, the rumors about the mysterious powerhouse became more and more exaggerated. In the end, it was said that the mysterious powerhouse was a grade 10 super evolved dragon. At the same time, these people also had a deeper understanding of Kong Hai's force. Kong Hai actually has such a powerhouse under him. If it's really a grade 10 super evolved dragon, why would he work for a grade 4 like Kong Hai? That's hard to say. Maybe they're just good friends. Maybe Kong Hai saved him before and he's just returning the favor. Therefore, when we meet Lord Kong Hai in the future, we'd better be respectful. He's still calling him Lord Kong. He's probably going to inherit the position of Star Lord soon. In fact, these people were right. A month later, Kong Hai officially announced that he would inherit the position of Star Lord. In the 10,000 Dragons Star Zone, the position of Star Lord was not officially appointed. It was held by the capable. The previous Star Lord had died and Kong Hai was the strongest among the remaining forces. Naturally, Kong Hai would be the Star Lord. Moreover, due to his previous achievements, no one had any objections to him taking the position of Star Lord. The entire Cloud Sea planet was talking about the strength of the Void Ocean and the strength of the hidden powerhouse. However, Kong Hai was the only one who knew that there was no hidden expert under him. Even if he ascended to the position of Star Lord, there would always be 2 chairs behind him. If one day those 2 mysterious powerhouses appeared, he would not hesitate to hand over the position of Star Lord to them. He had fought on the battlefield and gone through fire and water, so he valued his life more than anyone else. It wasn't that he was afraid of death, but that he cherished life. Although the position of Star Lord was indeed very tempting, it was not worth mentioning compared to his life. At the same time, he sent people everywhere to seek talents. He had recruited a large number of talents from Cloud Sea Planet. 2 teachers of Ocean of Clouds Academy had already resigned and been recruited by Kong Hai. Of course, Kong Hai had also invited Immerse several times. However, Immerse did not agree. Right now, he only wanted to quietly increase his strength and make a fortune. As for Star Lord, the position of ruler and the struggle between the various factions, he did not want to get involved. On this day, Immerse finished teaching a few students in his class. Although it was called a class, it was actually Immerse telling the students stories. What kind of class could he teach? He had already taught the students everything he could. Even the second transformation of various dragons was enough for the students to learn for hundreds or even thousands of years. Therefore, every day if Immerse was in a good mood, he would go to the classroom and tell the students a story or two. His experiences from Earth to the Flaming Origin continent and then to the Myriad Dragon Star region were far beyond the imagination of these dragons. Just 1 or 2 things could make them sigh in amazement. If he was in a bad mood, he would not even go to school. The dean of the academy did not dare to slight him. Moreover, the dean had personally said to him, "If you have something to do one day, you just have to let me know." This was equivalent to telling Immerse that if he wanted to come, he could come. If he did not want to, he just had to let me know. After all, the dean of the academy was only a rank 3 super evolved dragon, and Immerse was at least rank 5 or even rank 6 in the dean's opinion. Facing such an existence, he naturally did not dare to slight him. This morning, Immerse finished telling the story and was about to return to his office. Suddenly, he heard a few students say, "The Star Lord is here, the Star Lord is here, let's go take a look." Star Lord? Didn't the Star Lord die suddenly? Please, now that Lord Kong Hai has become the Star Lord, when did your family get connected to the internet? So it's Star Lord Kong Hai. I admire Lord Kong Hai the most. He fought 3 internal wars and 1 external war. Every time he killed so many enemies that they trembled in fear. He is known as the ever-victorious general. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go take a look. In their excitement, many students ran toward the academy's gate. Immerse shook his head. What a bunch of inexperienced brats. In fact, it wasn't just these students. Many of the academy's instructors also ran toward the gate. After all, even though they were instructors of the Cloud Sea Academy, they had never seen the Star Lord before. Now that they had the chance to see the Star Lord in person, they naturally would not miss it. Even the dean went out to welcome him. He might be a rank 3 super evolved dragon, but the Star Lord was a 4th grade. Naturally, he had to welcome him. Immerse was the only one in the entire academy who was still leisurely strolling along the tree-lined path, slowly walking towards his office. His only thought now was to improve his strength. As for his external living conditions, material conditions and the like, he did not care. Thus, even if he met the Star Lord, he did not care. What did it mean to be strong without desires? This was what it meant to be strong without desires. At the academy's gate, the instructors and students quickly lined up to welcome the arrival of Star Lord Kong Hai. Kong Hai was a rather easygoing person. He greeted the dean, the instructors, and the students. The dean said with a smile, "Star Lord, I didn't know you were coming. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." Kong Hai waved his hand. It's fine, it's fine. Everyone go do your own things. I'm here today to visit Immerse, Instructor Immo." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The Star Lord had just been appointed, and he was here to visit Instructor Immo? However, after thinking about it, they understood. Kong Hai had recently been recruiting talents from all over the place. Immerse was able to help a student advance to grade 1 in just 10 days. Kong Hai naturally wanted to recruit such a genius. However, Kong Hai only sent 1 person to invite the other talents. Now he was here to visit Instructor Immo personally. This surprised everyone. Chapter 629. Under everyone's gaze, the new Star Lord Kong Hai arrived in front of Immerse's office. Kong Hai's subordinate shouted, "Instructor Immo, the Star Lord is here to visit. Hurry up and welcome him." To everyone around, there was nothing wrong with this shout. After all, Kong Hai was the new Star Lord. Although Immerse was powerful and had some special abilities, he was still just an instructor of the academy. It was already an honor for Kong Hai to visit Immerse personally. Shouldn't he come out to welcome him? However, the dean had other thoughts. He knew that Immerse's strength had most likely reached the 5th or 6th rank Superflower Dragon. Under the premise that strength was respected in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, how could Immerse go out to welcome the Star Lord? As expected, Immerse didn't come out. All the instructors and students around felt that Immerse was a bit too much. However, Kong Hai glared at his subordinate. Who told you to talk too much? The subordinate immediately nodded and lowered his head. I'm sorry, Star Lord. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Instructor Imo. Kong Hai's voice was slightly stern. The subordinate immediately cupped his fists towards Immerse's office. I'm sorry, Instructor Imo. I was too rash and offended you. Please forgive me. Then Kong Hai cupped his fists towards Immerse's office. Instructor Imo, I'm the new Star Lord Kong Hai. Your subordinate has offended you. It's my fault for not disciplining him properly. I apologize to you here. When everyone saw this scene, each and every one of them was extremely shocked. A Star Lord apologizing to an instructor. Was there any justice in this world? Was there any law? One had to know that on a planet the Star Lord was the law and the Star Lord was the law. The Star Lord's face was greater than the sky. Although the strong were respected, generally speaking, the Star Lord was the strongest person on a planet. Even if the Star Lord made a mistake, he wouldn't admit it. Instead, his subordinate would apologize. Now Kong Hai was the one who made a mistake. In the end, not only did his subordinate apologize, but he also apologized. Everyone knew that the new Star Lord was thirsty for talent, but there was no need for him to be so humble in front of Instructor Imo. What they didn't know was that Star Lord Kong Hai actually knew something. In Kong Hai's opinion, many things in this world were connected. This was his experience after living for over 10,000 years. In the past, Instructor Imo was able to help a student break through 1 or even 2 levels in 10 days. This was already an existence that subverted everyone's knowledge. Later on, 2 mysterious experts appeared and destroyed the entire Sherminue residence in a single night. There might be some kind of connection behind this. That was why Kong Hai was so polite to Immerse. Immerse's voice slowly came from inside the room. Come in. Immerse had already plundered Kong Hai's memories. He knew Kong Hai's true thoughts. It had to be said that this old man who had lived for tens of thousands of years was really something. He could even see the connection between the two. He was indeed amazing. Instructor Imo, I'll come in then. As Kong Hai spoke, he pushed open Immerse's door and entered his office. Behind Kong Hai, his 2 subordinates also wanted to enter, but Kong Hai stopped them with a look. The 2 subordinates immediately stopped in their tracks. They closed the door behind them. Kong Hai entered the room and once again cupped his fists to Immerse. Instructor Imo, I came without an appointment. If I offended you, please forgive me. Immerse had a good impression of Kong Hai. Although this person valued power too much. He went to the battlefield to kill enemies and made them tremble in fear. He was also courteous and thirsty for talents. These were all true. At the same time, this person was actually able to guess that he was related to the 2 mysterious experts. He was indeed quite capable. It was just that Kong Hai would never dream that he was the 2 mysterious experts. Immerse smiled faintly and said, I've already said that I like freedom and don't like restrictions. Starlord Kong Hai, please go back. When Kong Hai heard this, he was even more certain of his guess. Most people would only call him Star Master when they saw him. Almost no one dared to call him by his name in front of him. Yet Instructor Imo added his name in front of the Star Lord Kong Hai. It could be seen that either this person was extremely powerful, or the faction behind him was extremely powerful. They were so powerful that they didn't care about his position as the Star Lord. Thinking of this, Kong Hai was secretly shocked. As expected, there was a high possibility that there was a connection between Instructor Imo and those 2 mysterious experts. Kong Hai continued, if Instructor Mo isn't willing to work under me, you can stay in the academy. You can do whatever you want. I only ask that you put your name under me. I will give you the highest honorary position. Your monthly benefits will also be far better than others. It could be said that Kong Hai's attitude was very humble. However, Immerse still waved his hand. He couldn't be bothered to talk to Kong Hai anymore. Instead, he directly used Dragon Sense to transmit his voice. You don't have to keep the 2 seats behind your Star Lord seat. I won't sit there. When Kong Hai heard this, he was slightly stunned. Then his expression changed drastically. He looked at Immorse in disbelief. The two mysterious experts who destroyed the Shi family are... Immorse shook his head. Not two. These words couldn't be clearer. If Kong Hai couldn't even understand the meaning of these words, then he had lived for tens of thousands of years in vain. His knees immediately went soft and he knelt in front of Immorse. Lord Imo, Senior Imo, I was blind. Please forgive me. He could already tell that the person in front of him was the one who destroyed the Shi family. In other words, he had both the time and space attributes. And one had to know that he could teach students of any other attribute. That meant that he had energy of any other attribute besides time and space. This was no longer something that could be described as a genius. Even a monster was far from enough. If one had to use a word to describe him, then it would be God. It was already very rare for an ordinary giant dragon to master 2 attributes. There had only been a few times in history for someone to master 3 attributes. And this instructor Imo had mastered almost all attributes. If this wasn't a god, then what was? No wonder his attitude towards him was so. No wonder he didn't care even if he met the Star Lord. Thinking of this, he hurriedly said, Lord Imo, Senior Imo, if you have any instructions in the future, just say the word. I will not refuse. By the way, if you want the position of Star Lord, I will now announce to everyone that you are the Star Lord of the Cloud Sea. Immorse couldn't help but smile and shake his head. Do you think I will be interested in a small Star Lord of the Cloud Sea? Kong Hai thought about it and agreed. Why would a person comparable to a god care about a small Star Lord position? Immorse knew that this guy actually compared him to a god through the public memory. He found it a little funny. But this was also good. Many things on the Cloud Sea would be easy to do in the future. Kong Hai, I know what you are thinking. I can tell you that I am not a god, but I am definitely more terrifying than you think. Kong Hai was stunned again. Then he lowered his head even more. Sure enough, this person was comparable to a god. He even knew what he was thinking clearly. But don't expose my identity for the time being. Kong Hai hurriedly replied, I will definitely not reveal a single word to anyone. If I reveal anything, I will be at your disposal. Immorse nodded in satisfaction and then asked, Kong Hai, are you willing to be my student? Chapter 630. Kong Hai, are you willing to be my disciple? Immorse asked a question that Kong Hai did not expect. Kong Hai was stunned when he heard this. An instructor of an academy wanted to take him, a Star Lord, as his disciple. If others knew about this, they would think that this instructor was too arrogant. After all, theoretically speaking, a Star Lord was the most powerful being on a planet. Who would have the right to take a Star Lord as their disciple? However, Kong Hai was only stunned for a moment before he asked, Instructor Imo, if I become your disciple, can I also advance by 1 grade? Of course. Immorse nodded slightly. However, it will take at least 10 days before you can advance by 1 grade. Kong Hai was overjoyed when he heard this. He had originally thought that Instructor Mo's ability to upgrade the giant dragons was only limited to those below super-evolved giant dragons. After all, it was extremely difficult for a super-evolved dragon to advance by 1 grade. If Instructor Imo could really make him, a super-evolved dragon, advance by 1 rank, then he would be no different from a god. Then Kong Hai is willing to be Instructor Mo's disciple. As Kong Hai spoke, he bent down and bowed deeply to Immorse. Immorse slowly raised his hand and gestured for Kong Hai to rise. Come back in 10 days. I will help you advance by 1 grade. Kong Hai was overjoyed. It was important to note that he had been stuck as a 4th grade super-evolved dragon for thousands of years. How could he not be excited when he had the chance to break through 4th grade and reach 5th grade? There is one thing you need to pay attention to, Immorse said. Our relationship will be kept a secret for now. Yes, Instructor Imo. Kong Hai was slightly surprised. Most people would be more than happy to have a relationship with a Star Lord. However, Instructor Imo kept such a low profile that he did not understand. However, he did not ask too much. After all, it was their first meeting. It would not be good if he asked too much and Instructor Imo would dislike him. Right, you can go back. Immorse said. Kong Hai nodded. Then I will take my leave. As he spoke, he respectfully left the room. The people outside did not expect their Star Lord to be so respectful in front of Immorse. He did not even dare to turn around as he left. Instead, he retreated step by step. When the crowd outside saw the Star Lord leave, they were all surprised. No matter how much the Star Lord thirsted for talents and treated them with respect, there was no need for him to be so respectful to Teacher Mo. But they couldn't ask too many questions. After Kong Hai left Immerse's room and closed the door, he turned around and said to everyone, If there's nothing else in the future, don't disturb Teacher Mo." His subordinates lowered their heads and said, "Yes, master." When the instructors and students in the academy saw this, they were very surprised. Even if Teacher Mo could help people advance by one stage, there was no need to be so exaggerated. One had to know that in their hearts, Kong Hai was a war hero, an existence that could strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. No matter how powerful Immerse was, he was only a teacher of an academy. In their hearts, Immerse's position was far below Kong Hai's. Now Kong Hai was so respectful to Immerse, which really confused them. After Kong Hai left, Immerse's days became peaceful again. However, the instructors and students in the academy were much more respectful to Immerse than before. After all, if the Star Lord was so respectful to Teacher Mo, how could they not be respectful? The dean didn't dare to assign any work to Immerse. Immerse became even more idle. Other than telling 2 stories to his students every day, he had nothing else to do in the academy. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Star Lord Kong Hai came to the academy again. But this time he didn't come with great fanfare. He came alone. After all, every time a student went to visit a teacher, he would attract a group of people with great fanfare. That would be too outrageous. Star Lord Kong Hai greeted the dean in advance. After the dean confirmed that Immerse was in the academy, Kong Hai entered the academy. Moreover, he disguised himself a little so many students couldn't recognize him. He came to Immerse's office. "Teacher Mo, I'm here," Kong Hai said. "Come in." Immerse's voice, which seemed to always be calm and collected, came from inside. Kong Hai entered the room and took out dozens of gifts from a storage space. "Teacher Mo, these are my gifts to you." Immerse glanced at them. Most of these things were not of much use to him now. Kong Hai observed Immerse's expression. When he saw that Immerse didn't seem to be interested in these things, he could only make up his mind. "Teacher Mo, I also have a lightspeed spaceship. I think with your status you must travel between the stars often. This lightspeed spaceship should be very suitable." Immerse's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He had seen lightspeed spaceships in the information before. The maximum speed of this spaceship could reach 110 lightspeed. That was equivalent to more than 30,000 kilometers per second. This was much faster than Immerse's current teleportation speed. If he had such a spaceship, he could reach other planets in just 10 minutes or even a few minutes. Thinking of this, he nodded. "Well, this is indeed useful to me. Then I'll reluctantly accept it." Kong Hai suddenly felt a pinch in his heart. He had spent a lot of money to buy this lightspeed spaceship. However, Kong Hai was not a stingy person. Moreover, his teacher could help him advance by 1 level today. Compared to the advancement, the spaceship was not worth mentioning. Kong Hai said to Immerse, "Teacher, my storage space is too small to fit the spaceship. So you'll have to come with me to get the spaceship later." Immerse nodded. "Cultivate once and let me see." Kong Hai Dongji sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Immerse had the Void Dragon's 9 transformations. The Void Dragon's 9 transformations was the culmination of all space attribute cultivation methods. Therefore, he could easily see through Kong Hai's problem. When you cultivate to the 2nd cycle, use all your energy to attack the Sihai acupoint instantly. Hearing this, Kong Hai muttered in his heart. In the past, his Sihai acupoint had been injured. Every time he cultivated, when the energy passed through the Sihai blood, he would feel a huge pain. Later, an expert gave him some pointers. He said that when the energy passed through the Sihai acupoint, it would be reduced by half. As expected, every time his energy passed through the Sihai acupoint, it would be reduced by half and he could cultivate normally. Why did Teacher Mo want him to use all his energy to attack the Sihai acupoint now? However, since Teacher Mo had already said so, he could only do as he was told. Soon, when he cultivated to the 2nd cycle, he used all his energy to attack the Sihai acupoint. Suddenly, a piercing pain came from his heart. Beads of sweat the size of beans on his forehead instantly poured down. When he cultivated to the 15th cycle, the pain almost made him faint. Fortunately, he had experienced countless battles and suffered countless injuries. He gritted his teeth and endured it. Finally, after 5 minutes, the pain seemed to have reached its peak. Just as he could not take it anymore, boom, a wave of energy seemed to spread out from his limbs and bones. Chapter 631. 631 The Power of a Star-Lord. Star-Lord Kong Hai followed Immerse's instructions and cultivated for 81 cycles. The pain in his heart started to spread throughout his body, spreading to his limbs and bones in an instant. Every pore and every cell in his body seemed to be enduring immense pain. It was as if 10,000 ants were gnawing at his flesh, as if 10,000 needles were piercing his heart. Even though Kong Hai was a Star-Lord, even though he had lived for tens of thousands of years and experienced countless pain and agony, even so he still felt as if he was better off dead than alive under this immense pain. In truth, this pain only lasted for a mere 10 seconds. However, these 10 seconds felt like 10 years to him. One had to admit that Kong Hai was a true man. A true man of iron and blood, tempered through war and blood. Even though he was enduring such immense pain, he gritted his teeth and didn't make a single sound. His consciousness seemed to be fading away amidst this immense pain. Just as he was about to faint from the pain, boom, a loud explosion seemed to ring out from within his body. The next second, energy flowed freely through his meridians like a flood that had broken through a dam. As this energy flowed through his meridians, the pain in every pore of his body finally disappeared. Every cell in his body seemed to be breathing happily. An indescribable sense of comfort spread throughout his body. He had experienced this feeling many times before. He only felt this when he was advancing. He opened his eyes. His entire body was drenched. Even the ground beneath him was covered in a layer of water. It was enough to see how much pain he had just endured. In contrast to the immense pain he had just experienced was the immense pleasure he felt now. He had finally advanced to 5th grade Super-Evolved Dragon. He hadn't advanced for tens of thousands of years. He had thought that he would never be able to advance even if he lived for another 10,000 years. With his talent, reaching 4th grade Super-Evolved Dragon was the limit for him. Who would have thought that he would advance by a grade in just 5 minutes under Instructor Mo's guidance? Instructor Mo was truly a god. At the thought of this, Kong Hai hurriedly got up and knelt before Immerse. I'm afraid I won't be able to repay Instructor Mo's kindness in this lifetime. If Instructor Mo needs my help in the future, feel free to ask. Kong Hai will not refuse. After becoming a super-evolved giant dragon, every level up was equivalent to an extra 10,000 years of lifespan. Therefore, Immerse not only allowed him to advance by 1 level, but also allowed him to live for another 10,000 years. How could he repay such a great favor? Immerse smiled and shook his head. There will be a time when you can repay me. Kong Hai heard this. He nodded heavily. Teacher Mo, if there's anything I can use you for, Kong Hai will definitely not refuse. At this point, Kong Hai's loyalty to Immerse could be said to be 100%. After all, Kong Hai was the lord of a planet. If an interstellar war broke out, how many dragons would die under Kong Hai's command? And these dragons were all counted into Immerse's dragon slaying value. Just thinking about it made him King happy. If a war broke out, wouldn't he be able to evolve into a rank 10 super-evolved colossal dragon in minutes? Perhaps it would be easy for the ancient dragons as well. At the same time, Immerse also thought of a way to increase his strength quickly. He said to Kong Hai, if there are people in your army who want to improve their strength, tell them to come over. Just like the others before, I guarantee that each of them will be able to advance by 1 level within 10 days. Although Immerse already had many students now, these students were basically still studying in the academy. None of them could really join the army. Even the 6th grade students were still a few years away from graduation. It would take a few more years for them to quickly develop their combat strength and increase their dragon slaying value. Therefore, Immerse thought of the colossal dragons in the army. Although there hadn't been any major wars in the Cloud Sea Star in the past 2 years, small rebellions kept happening, and there were also dragon bandits and the like. Therefore the army had been very busy. If those colossal dragons in the army became his disciples, then he would be able to earn dragon slaying value every day. Kong Hai nodded. Teacher Mo, I'll ask my Imperial Guards to come over tomorrow. Immerse shook his head. There's no need for the Imperial Guards for now. I think those soldiers who are fighting on the front lines every day need to improve their strength as soon as possible. This way their lives will be more secure. Kong Hai thought to himself, not only does a magister have powerful strength, but he also has a compassionate heart. No wonder he has such strength while I'm only the lord of a star. Yes, then I'll order the soldiers on the Eastern Front to come back in batches so that you can improve your strength. Now there are large and small battles breaking out on the Eastern Front almost every day. They need to improve their strength the most. Immorse nodded, then slowly waved his hand. Oh. On the way back, Kong Hai issued an order. Ask the soldiers on the Eastern Front to come back in batches to accept Teacher Mo's favor and improve their strength. On the Cloud Sea Star, the government wasn't the only power. In addition to the government, there were also some Hulong. These Hulong were originally the masters of the Cloud Sea Star. They were the natives of the Cloud Sea Star. Since the government sent colossal dragons to the Cloud Sea Star tens of thousands of years ago, these Hulong's status on the Cloud Sea Star was not as good as before. They were even treated as slaves. Therefore, many Hulong began to resist. Of course, their resistance was quickly suppressed by the Star Lord. After several major wars, these Hulong had suffered countless casualties. However, they didn't accept their fate. Instead, they escaped into the forest and fought guerrilla warfare with the government. Because the Cloud Sea Star was huge and the government's army was limited, it was impossible to completely destroy them. Therefore, the Star Lord ordered the colossal dragons to build a defense line in the east, south, west, and north. They were called the East, South, West, and North lines. Nowadays, the Hulong on the South, West, and North lines rarely showed up. Only the Hulong on the Eastern Front were still active and would attack the colossal dragons on the Eastern Front from time to time. At the Eastern Front, when the general guarding the Eastern Front saw the message from the Star Lord, he couldn't help but frown. The Eastern Front was so busy and they were short on manpower. Where would they find the time to send people back to improve their strength? Wasn't the so-called improvement of strength just training? They were going to kill Hulong every day. Why would they need training? This new Star Lord was F***King Bulsh**. But there was no other way. Since it was the Star Lord's order, he could only send some people back first. Therefore he sent more than 1,000 soldiers to Cloud Sea City. The Star Lord had ordered at least 5,000 people in each batch, but he only sent 1,000. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with the Star Lord. At the same time, he thought that since he was guarding the Eastern Front, no matter how dissatisfied the Star Lord was with him, the Star Lord wouldn't dare to touch him. That was why he was so brazen. About 2 days later, these soldiers arrived at Cloud Sea City. At the same time, the Star Lord Kong Hai invited Immorse over. When these soldiers saw that Kong Hai was so respectful to Immorse, they were a little surprised. Who exactly was this person? Soon those who were well-informed found out that Immorse was just a teacher in an academy. They couldn't help but feel disdain. Since when did a teacher in an academy dare to show off in front of the Star Lord? Chapter 632. There was a huge martial arts arena in Cloud Sea City. The martial arts practice field was 10 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide. This was the official martial arts arena. Usually, when there were some major celebrations or competitions between dragons, it would be held in this arena. Now the 1,000 soldiers were lined up neatly on the arena. Of course, since they were not in their dragon forms, the 1,000 of them looked very small when standing on this huge arena. Star Lord Kong Hai lectured these 1,000 people. Do you want to improve your strength? Do you want to become stronger in 10 days? Now is your chance. You must seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The soldiers below were all silent. Kong Hai was slightly displeased. Although Kong Hai was once called the god of war and a hero by them, a series of policies implemented by Kong Hai since he became the Star Lord were disadvantageous to the army. Therefore they were a little disgusted. In fact, Kong Hai had been in the army for thousands of years and knew that the dragon army had many bad habits. These policies he implemented were just to make the army change these bad habits and win the hearts of the people. However, this made the veterans who had been in the army for thousands or even tens of thousands of years very uncomfortable. Therefore they were naturally dissatisfied with Kong Hai. Kong Hai was already well aware of this, but he did not care. He still had to reform what was needed. At this moment, a figure quickly flew over from the distant horizon. When he arrived in front of Kong Hai, he slowly landed. Kong Hai cupped his fists to the person and said, "Mentor Mo, you're here." Mo Shi's subordinates were surprised to see their Star Lord being so respectful to a mentor of an academy. At the same time, they were also disdainful. Their disdain was not only for Kong Hai but also for Mo Shi. What ability did this little mentor have to make Kong Hai so respectful? Kong Hai was too arrogant. He was actually so respectful to a mentor of the academy. Kong Hai stretched out his hand to the soldiers and said to Mo Shi, "Mentor, you may begin." Mo Shi nodded. Then he said to the 1,000 soldiers, "I know what you're thinking. A mere mentor of the academy is being so respectful to the Star Lord. What a scandal. You're very disdainful of me and the Star Lord." As soon as he said that, the soldiers below looked at each other. Could this guy read minds? At the same time, they were secretly shocked. If they had such disdain for the Star Lord, how would the Star Lord deal with them? As expected, Star Lord Kong Hai's face darkened. "I can understand your disdain for me, but you must respect Mentor Mo 100%. If I find out who disrespects Mentor Mo, you know what will happen to you." Hearing this, the soldiers became even more curious. What was Teacher Mo's identity? The Master of Stars would rather be looked down upon than be looked down upon by others. Mo Shi glanced at the 1,000 plus people. "Now I'll teach you a spell. It's very simple. Follow me and learn for 10 days. After 10 days, I guarantee that you will break through to the first order." Hearing Mo Shi's words, none of the soldiers believed him. They had been on the battlefield for many years. They only believed in life and death and did not believe in anything else. They had been cultivating for so many years without being able to level up. Now this guy was actually boasting that he could help all of them level up in 10 days. If this wasn't bragging, then what was? Mo Shi continued, "What I want to teach you is very simple." As he spoke, he took out 1,000 cards that he had asked his students to make. The cards were none other than the multiplication table. There was no multiplication table in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. Mo Shi demonstrated and recited it. 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2, 3 equals 3, 4 equals 4. 9 The dragons were dumbfounded by this scene. Dragons had a long lifespan and their memories were not bad. It was not difficult for them to memorize so many multiplication tables. What surprised them was, what was this so-called mentor doing? "You said you wanted to help us improve our strength, but in the end you had to memorize this damn thing." Even Star-Lord Kong Hai was dumbfounded. What was the mentor doing? He didn't teach me like this when he taught me before. However, Kong Hai quickly calmed himself down. Instructor Mo was a senior expert. His thoughts were not something that Kong Hai could fathom. Actually, Mo Shi's thoughts were very simple. If he taught all these dragons the 9 dragon transformations one by one, it would be a waste of time. He might as well teach them the multiplication table. It would save time and effort. Anyway, the system did not teach the dragons anything. As long as he taught them a random skill for 10 days, they would be recognized by the system as his disciple. Then, Mo Shi placed the 1,000 multiplication tables on the stone platform in front of them and asked the dragons to come and take them. Although the dragon warriors were unwilling, they still came forward to take them. After all, the Star Lord was standing there. Although they were dissatisfied, they did not dare to disobey. After all the dragons had taken the multiplication tables, Kong Hai said, "Start reading now." The giant dragons looked at each other. Although they felt embarrassed, they still began to read it one after another. Thus, a scene like this appeared in the square. 1,000 dragon warriors stood in a square formation and chanted the multiplication formula in unison. 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2, 3 equals 3, 9 After all the dragons finished reading, Mo Shi nodded. "Very good. Now you can go back and recite the multiplication table by yourselves. I'll give you 10 days. After 10 days, those who have recited it can come here to find me. I'll help each of you improve by 1 level. Of course, this is voluntary. If you don't want to recite it or improve your strength, you don't have to come. But I have to remind you that you only have 1 chance. If you miss this chance, I won't help any of you improve your strength." The dragons scratched their heads in confusion. Seeing that they were still not dispersing, Kong Hai shouted, "Disperse." After all, he was once a soldier. Ordinary people could not understand his aura. The soldiers dispersed and left one after another under his roar. Kong Hai waited for those baffled soldiers to leave before he turned to Immerse and asked expectantly, "Instructor, what did you ask them to recite just now? Can you teach me?" He looked as eager as Sun Wukong in the cave of the slanting moon and 3 stars, asking Patriarch Subhuti for the method of immortality. Immerse smiled faintly and shook his head. "Everyone has their own cultivation method. You can't learn theirs." Kong Hai was a little anxious. "No, instructor. There are so many of them. If they can learn mine, why can't they?" Immerse smiled but did not answer. He left. Kong Hai was left standing there in a daze. He looked in the direction where the soldiers had dispersed, and his heart was filled with envy for those soldiers. That multiplication table must be a very powerful cultivation method or skill. Why can't Instructor Mo teach me? You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.